Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
Good, bad, or ugly, there is a sense of community that comes at the water cooler, right? Like historic, like we're built for community, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we're built to be around people and other people. We are a social being, right? So one thing that COVID has done is that it's shifted, it started to in a big macro way away from the idea of you go into the office every day.
Mm-hmm.
You bitch to your friends about how much you hate the boss, whatever. Like it's like CrossFit in a lot of ways. Why do people love CrossFit? I mean, there is a bonding experience that happens with shared suffering, right? I mean, like you go to CrossFit and everybody's like, "Oh, the workout sucked."
I mean, just like the police academy. Here's bonding through suffering.
Yeah, this is why
smoked in the rain and bear crawling and rolling through
100%. Like this is why the Navy SEALs and special forces like that work, because they go through Hell Week, right? And there you come out of it feeling really connected to the people around you. Now, even if it's toxic, the complaining and all the stuff that people do in the typical work environment, in a way, builds community.
Yeah.
What happens when that community is gone? Like what happens when we're all shifted? Maybe it's not 100%, but you're used to going in 5 days a week. Now you go in 2 days a week or 1 day a week, right? What happens to the sense of community that people crave, right? And so I've really been thinking to this idea of like in the development space and in your neighborhood communities, one of the things that you guys love about Creve Hall is the fact that your kids go out and you walk and you have the neighbors and the kids go out and play with the pig, with the neighbor kids, whatever, right?
The good old pig.
The good old Diesel.
Yeah, shout out to Diesel.
Shout out to Diesel. And I just...
one of the lucky ones.
I don't know. I've just really been thinking of this space of like, what happens to that void of community and how do you fill that void? Like, how do you build communities in such a way that people want to come home to? Because, like, I think the need for community will always be there. So whenever people are no longer getting that 9 to 5 going in every day, what are they going to do to fill that void? Right? And so I don't know. I've just been thinking about that, and I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are.
So you don't have an idea.
Well, no,
I do.
He has an idea.
I have an idea.
He's teasing at this point.
Yeah, so... Okay.
You're fishing.
Yeah.
I want to know what your thoughts are first, though, because, I mean... Do you not agree?
I do agree
that there is a sense of community in which we all crave.
100%.
100%.
Right,
Even though I was talking about having a good year, I mean, one of the things I've missed drastically is having 10 to 12 people over at the house, and we're just having beer, eating dinner, hanging out, playing board games, or even big parties at the church. Like, unfortunately, I didn't get to go to Ray's retirement party.
Okay, yeah.
But things like that.
Yes.
Like, even though it doesn't happen twice a week, once a week, but it still happens. I mean, there's still a void right now in me missing that stuff.
Yeah.
100%.
Because I just think that that piece will always be here. The need
it's human nature.
to be around people.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if we'll ever fully go back to the infrastructure that we've had forever. I don't, this industrial age, everybody goes into one spot. Now, it'll happen. There's always going to be warehouses. But even as technology increases, even factories are less human heavy,
That's
if
true.
you will,
Absolutely.
than they used to be.
Yep.
Right? Like what happens when you eventually go into a McDonald's and you don't add the cash register or whoever it is doesn't ask you what do you want.
They scan your face.
They scan your
your
face.
face and give you a prior order. That's already happening, by the way.
You go to the thing and you say, I want this, I don't want that. They can't jack up your order when you
Right.
punch it on the screen.
Yep.
Right? And so this idea of work being your fulfillment of community, as it starts to go away or it starts to lessen, I think that's going to continue to increase. And so for me, I'm really fascinated of how do you build communities that are community-centric, right? Like, to me, I think that's the next, I don't know, it just fascinates me.
So you're speaking of how do you lay out a community that basically...
A housing community?
A housing
or
community.
development of some kind?
Yeah, so when you start talking about
okay.
this, I automatically started thinking of like neighborhoods and how you
100%.
how you build an infrastructure of a neighborhood to almost in a sense force community.
Force community.
Yeah.
Offer it.
Yeah.
At least offer it.
Like,
well,
at
not
least
even
offer
not
it.
even necessarily offering it. See, I don't even think that's enough. We've done that before. We offer it. People result to their normal. But I think I get where you're going. How do you, in a sense, without being aggressive about it, but passively enforce community?
Yes.
How do you do that?
How do you do that?
How-
How do you build communities in such a way?
That's interesting.
Like Apple intentionally made everybody go through the same doors to get in.
There's ways to do it, but how?
There's like they built their facilities to where all the office spaces were around. If you ever noticed, it looks like the iPhone button. Remember the old iPhone button before these? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They built their
Before
thing
it
so
looked
that
at our
people
face.
had to come to the middle, and they bumped into other departments
Right. Yes.
because they forced that community in
Yep.
a way without, like you said, without being aggressive.
But it's a passive, subconscious.
And so I see a lot of developers. What they're doing is they're going into this community. They're just putting up houses as fast as they can, and they get out,
and it's dull.
and it's dull. And so my thing is like, what is that evolution of development going to be to where what people are no longer getting in their 9 to 5s, they want to come home because it fulfills that sense of community.
I think you're onto something there,
I just think that
That's interesting.
I think that's the future.
I'm brainstorming now.
You
how
know,
you
like,
build a
yeah.
like, look,
neighborhood.
I've
force.
been open about the idea. I have a theory that in 50 years we won't own homes anymore. Now,
That's a bold one.
I say we won't own homes the way I say we don't burn candles. Do people actually burn candles? Yes,
Yes.
but they do it out of luxury. They don't do it out of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like
Yeah.
this has already invaded the space of driving. We already have Uber, right? We already have all these things where like my wife's sister is 20 years old and she's still, well, actually, I think as of like 2 weeks ago, just now got her driver's license. At 20.
Now,
Yeah,
I
that's-
have
that's
seen
more
that become
common.
more
I,
common.
okay,
that's more
I
common.
skipped school on my 16th birthday
to go get my
license.
license. I did
Yep.
too.
You know, but I'm not ignorant. Like I'm in the real estate space. I make a living by selling homes. And I'm saying,
So flush out that idea. What do you mean?
Yeah, what do you
by
envision,
not
Alan?
owning homes? I want to know.
why,
what
okay, here's my theory. I think we are more and more going to be moving into a society where we want to be more and more mobile.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I want to, like if I have a job in which I can edit, okay, you know, you edit audio and you can do it here or you can do it on the beach. Why would you not live on the beach?
Because I hate the beach.
Okay, you hate the beach, but you love Colorado, right?
I've never been to Colorado, but I love the mountains.
The mountains,
The
okay,
cold
right?
weather,
Like if you could live here or you
The
could live in
cold
the
weather.
mountains,
Yes.
and you could do it from anywhere, why would you not live in the mountains?
I would love to do.
Right.
And
police work over.
okay, why is it that if I want to, okay, if I own this house, okay, and I want to move to the mountains, now I've got to clean it up. I got to do all this crap. I got to hire a realtor. And listen, I'm a realtor. I am putting myself out of business with this theory. Okay, so
But then you're gonna put yourself in another
I'm
business.
not being dramatic here. I'm not trying to be like romantic.
Yep.
Right? I make a living by selling homes, but there's too much friction.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to move tomorrow to the beach, why can't I just go and move?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to continue to permeate the younger generation as they come up. Like why do I own a car? I can just take an Uber everywhere that I want to go,
Mm-hmm.
right?
So
And-
what are you envisioning people living in?
I still think they're going to be homes, but I think it's going to be. I have a vision of we're going to move much more into renting, right? I think people are going to opt to, if I rent this home and I want to go to the mountains next month, I don't have to go through the hassle of selling my home, potentially taking a bloodbath on it, and all this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as society continues, we're going to be more and more to the leasing piece. I mean, the studies are already showing that the next generation is far less likely to own a home than previous generations before them. Like the American dream used to be, I want to own a home with a picket fence.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to be mobile, right? And so when I say we're not going to own homes, I'm not saying nobody's going to own homes, but as a society, I think we're going to move more toward this idea of it's going to be much more fluid. If I want to move from here to San Francisco and I decide 2 years later I hate San Francisco and I want to move to the mountains, I can move to the mountains and removing that friction. So my thoughts is like, how do you develop these communities that force interaction, that force community, something we already want, and we remove the friction of movement, right? How do we remove that? How do you create a society to
Open
where,
door policy. Neighborhood.
you know,
You can't lock your doors. You're all welcome.
look, think
Come
about
in.
it. Think about it. I mean, BMW already, and not just BMW, all of these already have the. if you buy a subscription to a car.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's really what you're talking about.
It's a subscription to
model
living.
Housing.
It's subscription
idea.
housing
Yeah. Okay.
to where you can just move from one place to the next.
Okay.
But the only
So-
thing that I would see is somehow you would have to facilitate in that still some type of ownership, if that makes sense.
Maybe or maybe not.
Because I'm
Maybe
just
not.
thinking,
I don't think people.
I hate living. I don't hate where we live, but I hate that it's not mine at the same time.
I fully agree
Does that
with
does that make sense? What I'm saying? So how do you
it does.
incorporate?
Yeah.
That
And I don't
type
know,
of-
and I don't know the nuts and bolts. I don't know how that's going to play out. Like, did you know in the 1950s, like when they would advertise the future, when they predicted like 2020, they predicted like the wife cleaning up at the house with robots everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like they didn't, they couldn't envision in their mind maybe the wife wants to freaking go work.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
their limited mindset said, "Oh, women are just going to continue to work and clean the house.
Yeah.
They're just going to clean the house with robots now."
Do it better. Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Instead, they didn't realize there was a complete utter mind
Mhm.
shift in the community to where now women make as much of the workforce as men, right? And so I don't know how that's going to play out, and I think time will eventually play itself out. But I think the need for community will always be here. And so, how do you facilitate communities to force community to where they're not getting it here, but they're finding it here? And I think that we're going to continue to be more fluid in our housing situation.
So the big ideas that I'm hearing here is mobility and community.
Mobility and community.
Is that really the two
Yeah,
big ideas?
that's
that
the
you
two big
see here?
ideas.
Mobility and community.
Mobility and community.
And I think the community piece, I don't think it could be or should be forced. I think it should be
I
offered.
say, okay.
when we
I
say
think it should-
forced, I don't think we mean like it is. You can't like.
Okay,
avoid
there's
it.
a
But-
quote that says, "Great design is obvious, brilliant design is invisible."
That's what I'm.
You
that's
see what I'm saying? When I say
Yeah.
force community,
That's
I don't
exactly
mean like
what I'm
you
saying.
force community.
or
I'm
something
just
that you can't avoid. It's
I'm
just,
saying that you build it in a way in which community comes naturally.
100%. I think you're onto something there, and it's more than just having a development with a swimming pool
100%.
and a
yes.
restaurant and
Yeah.
a grocery store. It's more than that.
It's more than that.
So I like that, and then the subscription model I also really like.
It's way look, and it is not a model that will work in 2020, and it's
Right.
probably not a model that'll work in 2035. But I'm saying that
Well, the subscription piece of that model, the community piece of
The
that
community
model, I
piece-
think would work really well in 2020.
it'll work in 2020. It'll work in 2035, and I'm not saying the subscription model will work even in 2035. But I'm just saying, as we move forward in society, it has already went into transportation. The way we look at transportation, why would it not look into the way we live?
I agree with that. What would be interesting is if, let's say, you had Dixon Communities, and let's just take the lid off this thing. And by the way, I've got 20 minutes. No, I've got 15
I know.
minutes.
I gotta.
All right, so we got to get you out of here. But
Yeah,
if
it's
you
already.
had-
It's already. Man,
Dude, we've been
here
going for a while.
so if you had Dixon Communities,
This has been a good one.
it's been great. So if you had communities around, let's just take America, for example, before we think about around the globe, but around America, and you would charge people a certain amount of money every month to live in any of those communities. And they have to live in any one of those communities for at least 3 months, because you can't have people moving in
Yeah,
for
just
a month
in and
then
out and go.
in and out. That's a
Yeah.
hotel or it's whatever. Like that's not. But if they're there for 3 months and they can move around the country to any Dixon community that they want to live in for the same fee, and maybe you help them to move for an extra fee. I mean, that's something. And maybe one of those communities is a house on the mountains in Colorado, and that's
There is-
available. And if someone's in it, then it's not available.
Yeah.
But if you just
There
kind
is
of
just
structure that.
look, and I do this for a living. There's too much friction if you want to move your family somewhere
Mhm.
or yourself or you and your whoever, your spouse.
Your
If you-
dog, your
like,
cat, your
If,
pig.
if
whatever.
there,
I
I'm
like
just
that.
saying, there's
Yep.
too much friction right
I agree.
now. If I wanted to get up, like right now, I moved to an apartment and out of my personal residence. I own with their investment properties, we have 5 or 6 properties, and I chose to live in an apartment
Mhm.
because I didn't want to go through the hassle of fixing, because I have to fix up my
Right.
house, I have to renovate my house, I can put it on the market,
Yeah.
I can sell it. It's too much
Yep, it's involved.
friction.
Yep.
So the question is, and I don't have the answer to this, but how do you remove that friction? I think the person who figures out how to remove the friction from a mobile lifestyle will win. Anyway,
I like that idea, Alan. I like.
You've got me racking my brain over here about how to make a neighborhood that like passively enforces like community. I don't know.
Why do you guys not like my word offer?
Because
can't the community just offer community?
we already do that, and it
not
doesn't
very well
work.
for the most part. Not very well though.
But
I mean, there are developers getting into that space more. There is some even in Nashville that are getting more intentional about that or deliberate about that, offering the community space, but that's not very common at all. For the most part, they're building houses.
Look, there are people in the space that I look at and they're doing it really well, and I think they're onto something.
Yeah,
I still think when you just offer it, humans will naturally revert to like their introvert personality.
Yeah.
So
when
it
comes back to subliminal kind of design. It's designed so well that
I know that forcing is kind of a strong word.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I think that's a great idea.
It is a great idea.
I love that. Yeah.
I think it's going to happen. I mean, I think that.
Well, let's get to it first before anybody else does.
Exactly. I think this is the future, regardless of who does it. I think this will naturally unveil itself. Yep. So how do you get ahead of that trend, and how do you innovate in that space? Anyway, just going on a tangent. Community. I've thought about community. That's the thing I've thought about over and over in 2020. People are losing that sense of community. I think that may be contributing. I don't know. I think that may be contributing to the fact of isolation makes people do crazy stuff.
I think it does.
Right?
I think it's a big.
Here's what I think too, and we don't need to discuss it, but I think when it comes to working from home, one of the things a lot of people realizing is, oh wow, we can be pretty effective working from home as opposed to driving an hour and going to an office. I think the step beyond that people aren't talking about, at least that I'm not hearing yet, but I also think is a consideration, is how many people you had at your company that you didn't actually need.
Yeah.
More cost effective.
Well, and here's why I say that, because there was a girl at our gym today who's there pretty commonly who had a phone. You know, they make these yoga pants with a lot of the phone pockets.
The little slide.
Yeah, and I could tell this is CrossFit Gym, and she had like a phone in her pocket. I was like, hey, you have a phone in your pocket, right? She's like, yeah, with my work, I'm on call. She was on a conference call, air quotes, that she just had to call in. And I was like, oh, are you in like healthcare or law enforcement or something where you have to be like on call? And she's like, no, it's like just like she just has to like call in. Like, so it's not really a knock on her because maybe that call wasn't that important or whatever, but she's carrying her phone in her pocket so that she can call in at just the right time to be on a call while she's doing a CrossFit
She's
workout.
not even paying attention.
She's not paying attention. And the company's probably thinking, by the way, I have no idea if this company changed their practices. I don't even know the company. I don't even know the industry that she's in. All I'm saying is a lot of people are like, oh, wow, look how efficient we can work from home, which I disagree with to some extent. I agree with some of it and I disagree with some of it. But so that's where the attention is like, look how efficient we can be working from home. But I think there's actually a step beyond that, which no one's really talking about yet, which is look how efficient, or look how well our companies can actually run with some percentage of our people being kind of checked out.
Yeah.
And when we realize that, we're going to fine-tune the workforce.
Absolutely.
And those people that are half-assing it while they work from home are going to have to look for some other job.
Quick note on that. I actually have always wondered why the 9-to-5 office cubicle things were kind of a thing. And I think 2020 has kind of been shown my theory. I think eventually we'll get to this. I think coming out of 2020, working from home will come a lot more prevalent. And I think companies will do well if they offer both but also still force them to come into the office a little bit. Because there are things you need to come in the office. I
agree.
And I've always thought, if I was a CEO of a company, if I ran a big business, hey, if you can get your work done from home, go home. Don't need to sit in this cubicle to sit here mindlessly doing nothing. If you got stuff you can take care of, I just need your work done, and I need it done to a certain standard. So go home, go do what you got to do. You'll get paid as long as I have my work done. When it needs to be done.
I think it totally depends on the role. I think for a lot of roles, they can be traveling across the country. A lot of sales roles are like this. You can be anywhere you want traveling. But then there's certain functions within the company where to do it virtually, it takes twice as long and it's twice as hard and you have half the understanding than if you just do it in person.
Absolutely.
It's the big reason we only do this podcast in person. There is a magic to being in person that Zoom has not yet replaced. Will it replace one day with holographs and things like that? maybe, I don't know, but it's nowhere near replacing in person at this point. There's still something about being in person. You can accomplish something more efficiently. It depends what you're trying to accomplish, but particularly when it comes to ideas and strategy and collaboration and planning and those types of things, being in person is, you can't replace
It's unmatched.
it. Yeah, it's unmatched.